Right, here we are again. I don't know if this is just going to be like our thing from now on. Like, who knows? League 6. We come round to the Doubleshine and Scritic podcast, but here we are, episode. Would this be 4?
I think this is 4. Yeah, we've done, I think 3 by now. I don't know. It was a little hazy there at the end when everything was in motion, but I had a little bit of time now, probably a lot of thoughts to gather, and probably a good time to have a nice little chat, huh?
Yeah. So what are we at the time of recording this? We are 4 weeks into the league. Am I right? Or just shy of 4 weeks?
No, I think we just started week 5.
Right. So yeah, we're a good way through the league, and I think both of us. I mean, I've tuned into your live streams, you've tuned into mine. I think we've both seen that we've both been very busy, played on multiple accounts. So I suppose in this video, we're going to be going through just like our general thoughts, what we've been up to. But I think what's going to be really interesting to see your take on is going to be what we both think is the best and worst relic, what we think is the most fun and least fun combat style, and again, on a similar kind of thought, what we think is the most fun and least fun region as well. So that's going to be really interesting. But I don't want to rush ahead. How have you been? How have you found the league? What do you think to Leagues 5?
Dude, it's been great. It's been awesome. What can I say? Like, it's been so much fun. It's been half the reason why I think this chat got like delayed like 3 weeks because, oh my God.
My bad as well, dude. We've both been so busy with it.
Yeah, I know. I feel like I was like, oh yeah, I'll have like a nice scheduled thing. And then like Leagues hits and it's like, oh, a month of your time just disappears and stuff like that. And then also like everything going on in real life. And then, you're like, okay, fine. Not going to be, I'm not too busy now. And then you're like, all right, a second account has just started. And you're like right back in the mix of things. And that, man, that has just been eating up all my time. But I've been, overall, I feel like I've just been enjoying it a lot. It's actually crazy that you mentioned it's like week 5 and I'm still like just having a blast and trying a lot of different stuff out. And in a lot of ways, I'm kind of happy that we're having this chat now because I think there's been a bit more time to like try out different things with like, alt accounts and whatnot. So I actually feel like I got to experience because I really do feel like this year in particular, what kind of stands out to me is just how much diversity there is. And that's why I think this like, it's going to be a pretty fun to just talk about our experiences,
Yeah. And like, I guess the first question I wanted to ask you on that was, we've both been playing multiple accounts, but the $1 million question that I'm sure someone will ask you, has asked you, or will ask you if they haven't already, have you got Dragon Cup yet on one account?
Honestly, I don't want to talk about that. No, okay, I'm very, very close. Yeah. My main, I think I end up getting like 58,000 points in like the first 2.5 weeks or so. And I got to a point where I was like, I felt like the chase to dragon was starting to kind of like, I don't want to say it was like exhausting and stuff like that.
It does wear you down, man. It does. Like, you can't sugarcoat it. It does wear you down when that's all you're focused on. Yeah.
And I think like, I just kind of realized that like, I was starting to become, I think, more focused on the grind to dragon than actually like enjoying the game. So like, and right now, like I'm gonna hit dragon on my main. It's gonna happen by the end of the season for sure. I'm like 1,000 points away. But it's more like I just want to go play an alt, so I went to go play an alt. That alt is almost rune rank, but it's sitting at like 43,000. So I'm like, I'll probably get rune on that as well. And but now I'm on to something. Oh, sorry. Now I'm on something else, and like. I don't know. I feel like for me, I'm not like in any rush to hit dragon. Originally, I was trying to aim for like top 100 dragon, top 200 dragon, and that just I could not keep up. People are just gaming way too hard.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. What about you? How's your? Because I know you've definitely played more than one account as well, right?
Yeah. So I've played on 3 accounts. I've been playing secretly on a 4th account, but that's been like a no pressure off stream, just have fun and mess around account. So I've been playing on about 4 accounts. Similarly to you, I think when you combine all the points together that I've got across all these accounts, I could have had Dragon Trophy almost twice over by now. But for me, and it's really interesting that we're talking about this first, because I was just talking about it on stream today, is that for some people, part of the fun in leagues is chasing that Dragon Trophy and having that almost like sort of sense of achievement. And to kind of like show it off and be like, hey, look, I got Dragon Trophy. Look, I've accomplished this. That's great. And then for others, and this is definitely the category I sit in, For me, it's about looking at the opportunities there is to have fun in different ways in leagues, and then just doing that on as many accounts as possible. So yeah, that's where I'm at. I would love to get Dragon Trophy. I just can't. I can't even fathom at this point. I'm way further away than you are. I can't even fathom at this point how many points I need to start locking down per day to get Dragon Cup at this point. I'm just not going to stress myself out about it. I'm just going to try and have fun.
Yeah, I think like for me, actually, I had like a kind of similar thing in mind when like around like week 2 or so, because I kind of realized on my very first run through is that my regions weren't really the most like, they weren't the best for like reaching Dragon at like a super fast rate.
So
or,
what
like,
regions did you pick on your first playthrough?
My first one was, it was actually the rank 1 like meta regions of Zaya, Mauritania, Fremennik. I didn't even know that that's what they were all picking, but then I started looking at like all the leaderboards, and that is like the theoretical top points.
Yeah.
And there was a little spark in my mind that was like, oh, well, what if you go for every single task completed? And then, you know, as I started getting closer and closer to like Dragon, I was like, man, I do not want to go complete every task. Like, I just, I
isn't
don't
that what Foe's done? I might be wrong, but isn't that what Foe's doing? Completing every single task?
I don't know if that, they might be completing every single task. I don't know about that. I know that their regions were not the like top possible tasks, if that makes sense. Like theirs were a lot more like faster and like geared towards, I think, like an early rush. Like I think they had regions like Wilderness, which is a very good region, but its tasks are relatively a lot easier than like Mauritania, where you have to do like Theater of Blood a lot more. So
yeah, can't relate. I think I got a Scythe on my first hard mode top KC, and then I was kind of like, well, I've run it back with the guys like 4 or 5 times, but otherwise I'm done on this account. Like that's it. That was on an ult though, so I imagine when you're chasing something like Dragon Cup, having to spam those raids so many times can start to like, you know, have a bit of a toll. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, and I just like, I think for me, I also just started to think about like, would I ever like sacrifice my fun for like the competitive side of leagues? And like, I just don't really see myself ever doing that. So I kind of had like I feel like I kind of had like a moment of like self-examination where I had to think and be like, okay, I need to like stop caring about like, you know, going for like leaderboards or going for like top 100 or anything like that, because like realistically, it's just not something I think I ultimately like care enough about to like sacrifice fun. And then without like actually choosing like the better regions or without choosing better relics optimizing for that, then I feel like it just becomes like needlessly difficult. So yeah.
I feel like it's just not worth the thumbnail, man. You know, there are some people that will chase the thumbnail, and there are some people you expect to have the thumbnail. You know, if I saw a solo mission upload and it didn't say I am rank 1, I would be disappointed. But I think outside of the people you probably expect to chase that, it's a lot. I think they probably don't even do it justice in their videos of how much work goes into chasing front page, you know?
And I think this year, one thing that I think kind of made me feel a lot more validated with that is that, I don't know if you saw, but like the actual like rank 1, like first person to complete every task with the most points, that all ended up coming down to just RNG stuff. It was somebody was chasing getting a magic seed from a bird nest. That was the last task that they needed, and they opened up 1,000 bird nests for it. Meanwhile, I think second place was stuck in Nightmare doing like 1,000 nightmares.
Oh, that's a bad place to go dry. That's a horrible place to go dry.
And I think pretty much all of them, like I think another person, a cold one, they've been stuck just trying to get a kebab. Yeah, that's all they've been doing. Yeah, and it's like literally like I think on the top 10, like half of them are all just stuck doing RNG tasks at the end. And it's like, I think they all kind of realize like, man, this sucks for us too. And like, you know, at a certain point, it's like, man, okay, I'm not going to go for that and stuff. And I think like in general, like, I feel like people should just play leagues as much as they enjoy it. And if like you're not enjoying it, then like, and you know, Dragon Cup it's not that like, it's not that cool. You know what I mean? Like if you're not having fun, I feel like you should just do something else instead.
I'll make a confession right now. I have not got Dragon Cup on a single league, but I have played across at least 3 accounts on every single league, every single one from leagues 1 to right through. And I really don't think I have it in me to chase Dragon Cup. This might be the first year that I do it, if I can get the time to do it. But otherwise, I've always been of the mindset that as soon as things start to feel stale, without like quitting in a way, because I know that's something other people do, is like they just stop playing halfway through, jump on another account. I know that's easier said than done, and you need to bond another account or pay for membership or whatever, but jumping on a fresh account and making different decisions can feel like starting again, like entirely. And I know, technically you are, but I mean, it can feel like a totally different experience. And I would do that every single league.
Yeah, to me, I think I feel like part of me is like I had the same situation. I never got on Dragon until last leagues, and then I had Dragon for my first time, and I also was pretty competitive in the last Deadman mode. So I think for me, all the like competitive stuff I got out of the way, and I was like, I didn't even feel as good having gotten it and stuff. So in a lot of ways, I feel like I don't really have anything to like prove anymore. So for me, it's like I would rather just make a new account, because I've ultimately found that the progression from like tier 8 or from tier 1 to tier 8 and even to around like Addy or Rune or so, I feel like to me that's like the best part of leagues, where you get to experience it. And then it's like past that, it's like, okay, well now you're going to be like maxing and stuff like that, and like you don't have to do every like awful grind to get to Dragon. Like you can definitely get Dragon without it, but it's like I think there's so much more freedom and so much more variety up until Rune, and then it starts to feel a little bit more restrictive, I would say.
And and like I say, it's interesting that we started the chat with this, because it was something I was talking quite extensively about over the past few days, is like, soon as you start to look at the leagues in a competitive way for yourself or a leaderboard's perspective, I personally feel like it loses a lot of charm. And I will say, if we can just talk about the task list quickly, this year, and I don't know if I'm just a bit jaded because I can't remember the task list from last year, but this year feels like there were so many tasks that could have been in that weren't, and instead were replaced by like, big XP milestones. Like the amount of tasks, the amount of 50 mil tasks that you have to tick off if you want Dragon Cup almost feels mandatory. Like rather than chasing like an ultra rare drop or, like you say, getting really, really lucky with RNG, it feels like you were kind of shoehorned down. Right, you need to max your account, get 50 million in all skills, otherwise you don't stand a chance of getting Dragon Cup. And I feel like that's a very narrow approach to achieving Dragon Cup. And sure, you might be able to avoid some of those tasks if you're going for Dragon, but not all of them.
Yeah, it's funny you say that, because I had the same experience. My first account and then my second account was so different. And to me, I think it really comes down to what regions you selected. And that's why I feel like there is this big difference right now in how people are, I guess, feeling in that, like, I would say probably around like the 50K mark. Because I would say until around like 45K or so, like there's so much for you to do that, like, really, if you're struggling to find tasks, like just start running down the list. But to me, I think it's really a region thing. And like there's some regions, and we'll probably talk about this a little more when it comes to like best and worst region, but I've just found that like some regions, especially the raid regions, feel a lot more restrictive, and others are so much more like you're just kind of handed free points just for like engaging with content. And I don't know, it just feels really nice. And like I'm still shocked at how much different it felt compared to a more heavy raid region account versus one that had no raids, and where I just felt like, okay, if I just run down this task, I could probably get I could get almost all this stuff done in like, maybe like a couple days, honestly, because it's not really that bad outside of like, a couple like 300 kill tasks and stuff. So
it's interesting you say that, because on my first playthrough, I picked Zaya on my ranged account. And there came a point where I thought that the only way I was going to milk any more points out this region was pretty much like just completing every single task associated with the Chambers of Xeric. And it felt very like constricting. Do you know what I mean? It was either that or Wintertodd. Wintertodd, in my opinion, not the most fun when you're like just stuck there and it feels like you're in Wintertodd jail until 50 mil fire making and you tick off all the tasks there. Again, a little bit of RNG, getting the Pyromancer set and all that kind of stuff. But otherwise, Zaya, for a region that I was kind of banking on, and I was kind of selling propaganda on, being a great starter region, which it was, but then just being a good late game region too, I actually didn't feel that way in the end. I didn't feel like it it was that good in the end. But I wonder how many other people felt that way about the other regions. I still, going back to our task list, I still wouldn't take back that we ranked Mauritania number 1. I still think that might have been the best raid region and just the best kind of like all round for a bit of like dipping into different content, you know?
Well, do you want to, I guess, because I know regions was the first thing on our list, or regions actually the last thing on our list.
Well, we can start with that. Why don't we start with,
why don't we just start with that? Because I feel like we're kind of naturally going into it anyways, yeah? So
yeah, why don't we start with that?
Your favorite region?
It isn't Mauritania. So,
okay.
Even though I would rank Mauritania as the number 1 region, and the reason I would rank it as the number 1 region is again, just, I feel like in previous leagues, it wasn't a great early region, but this league, it feels like the progression with Masteries, giving you a bit of flexibility, made it chill, start to finish. However, all right, if we're talking about this and we're being serious, my favorite region, the most fun, right? We're not talking about meta, because I'd go on a different tangent.
I assume we're going to talk about like your favorite, not like what I think is strictly the best.
No,
because it's hard to. That's always going to be subjective to what your goals are. So I think.
Yeah, and what tasks you excel at completing as well, right? If we're talking about it. Most fun region is Varlamore, and I think that's because number 1, I think the Echo Soul fight actually became probably my favorite Echo fight in general. I wasn't sure how it was going to be because I don't know about you, but this league, I went into every Echo fight blind. I purposely, and honestly, it was so difficult because I love watching other creators' content. I purposely avoided watching anyone else's content until I'd done that Echo boss. Because I know people are going to rush it, people are going to do it. And I just wanted the experience of jumping in blind and, you know, kind of being taken aback and having to learn it the hard way. And I did that with every single one. And Soul actually felt like, for me, firstly, the one that wasn't much harder than the base version, but then also it was just fun. There was a lot going on. It felt really rewarding to get it down. And the other reasons I love Varlamore, obviously the Sunlight build. I did a video on the Sunfire Fanatic damage situation is out of control, I think is what I titled it. Like the highest damage burst, the highest DPS potential within like a timed window in the entire of the leagues. Also the Hunter element, the Hunter's Rumor element was kind of fun for a little while. But if I'm honest, the only reason I would rank Varlamore as the most fun region was because of kind of the whole meme setup behind the priest build, to be honest.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I had to straight up, I think I gave out like 10, 24-hour timeouts for people trying to spoil the fight. They're like, oh, just really? Do this. And I'm like, I need everybody to shut up right now. I don't care if I'm just wiped. Like, please stop telling me how to do this fight. I'm going in blind. I've been avoiding watching any content for 3 weeks. Like, I do not need you to tell me how to do this. I mean, I was getting so tilted, but but no, I'm with you. Where like to me, I think that blind experience of like going into fights is like the most important thing to me. And I guess in general, I'm with you. I think Varlamore is the best region. I was just blown away. I think it was just straight up like best region in leagues. And pretty much, I think that's my biggest regret right now is not taking it the first time around because
same here.
Holy moly, Varlamore was just so fun. I think it's like, to me, I think I've come to realize that it is just like the trifecta of everything I want in a region in leagues, and that's like has like pretty good tasks, right? Most of them are fairly easy, I would say, to do. Like especially if you have any experience in Coliseum, I think you get a lot from just doing Coliseum and like Echo Soul. It has good good content. Yeah,
enjoyable content.
I enjoy doing pretty much all the content in there. I like doing a Moxliaddle. I mean, Huey is a little bit weird.
I wouldn't go that far, but I would agree with you otherwise. A Moxliaddle is like...
I'd never done a Moxliaddle before,
really?
So it's kind of fun for me to just go in there and like rack up like 25 kills, especially super early on when I had like no gear or anything like that. Like, because I went there very early with Varlamore. So that was pretty fun for me. Even Perilous Moons, I was really worried that Perilous Moons would feel like a slog, and went in there, pretty much got all my sets and had no like... I mean, I never felt like it was like a huge pain or anything like that. And then of course you have Vardorvis and Coliseum, which I think are like, you know, just two of like the straight up best parts of RuneScape for me. And Echo Soul also gives you that experience of Soul without having to go through the Coliseum. So Man, I don't know. I think. Oh, and then finally, the third part of the trifecta is it actually has good rewards too. Like it actually feels like you're rewarded. So, like, I mean, I thought the sunlight spear, like, man, that thing is so funny, and I loved using it. And every time, I was just blown away at how many like weird things I found with it because it does typeless damage. I don't know if you know this, but it like can one-shot the skulls and wardens in Tombs of a Mascot for like the desert.
Really?
So I was doing 8-mans and I would just like slam down and just half the skulls would just delete. And my team was like, what the heck? Like, who is carrying one side here while the rest of them are all like running back? It was so fun. Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
And Sunlight Spear is super cool. The bracers that like double your healing, like, man, those feel so rough to play the game without, because like it's just crazy. Yeah, I don't know. Varlamore's cool, and it's like a very self-contained region. It just has everything. It's got answers to everything.
Agreed.
Like I don't know. I just absolutely loved Varlamore. It was so cool.
Yeah, I thought there's very few regions in Leagues 5 that I felt like if you got locked to this region, fair enough, maybe not for 8 weeks, because 8 weeks is a long ass time. But if you got locked to just this region, is there enough content there to keep you entertained for a while? There are very few regions I could pick. Probably maybe 2 or 3. Varlamore is definitely one of them. And actually, I felt that every piece of gear you can get within Varlamore is enough to carry you through early, mid, and late game. Like, you really don't need anything else outside of Varlamore. Fair enough if you're going for like a magical range build, you know, there's some upgrades to be made outside of that region. But even then, there are suitable options within. And yeah, no, the Sunlit Bracers, while you mentioned that, I had quite a few people drop in on stream like, no way is this guy combo eating Swordfish and Karams right now. And I was like, yeah, bro, I don't think you understand. With the Sunlight Bracers, that's like 80-something HP healed. Like,
yeah, it's like a full heal every time.
Yeah. I don't need to go over the top, you know? I don't have Wrangler on this on the account that I picked Varlamore. So, of course, I'm just going to go buy some cheap food. Sunlit Bracers are going to make that incredible. And, yeah, like the whole thing. I didn't even have all that much experience with Colosseum before going into it. And I felt like I learned a lot, even just from Leagues. So I know this is something we said in our build-up to Leagues, but it really has now given me the confidence when I go back to the main game to maybe dig into the Colosseum a little bit and have a bit of fun with it, because it's not something I've had the chance to try in the main game yet. Not properly, anyway. So Varlamore was a lot of fun, definitely.
Yeah, I don't know. For me, I feel like I felt like just slamming Echo Soul over and over and over again. Like, obviously it's a harder fight than regular Soul, but it's fundamentally, you know, it's still the same mechanics. And I felt like doing that, I started to sort of like, it's like, I felt like there's like a moment where I felt like Neo in the Matrix.
Yeah, all the numbers on the screen.
I'm like, whoa, yeah.
All the numbers on the screen start lighting up, and that's how you can just read everything.
Yeah, and I was like doing like movements and stuff where usually I'm like so on edge during like when I'm doing my Coliseum runs, and I'm always like, damn, you get to Soul and there's always like that small chance you still die. And now I feel like man, I go back to a regular game and I like slap this guy every time, and like it's the waves that will still mess me up. But like Soul, just getting that like I guess really focused practice was just so much fun for me.
Yeah, it was great. And I guess like going back to what we said in our build up as well, where we said people would be scared to pick Varlamore because of Echo Soul. I definitely think what we both said weighs up now, because don't get me wrong, I died to it. I went in blind. I died to Echo Soul maybe 2 or 3 times actually, because I went in at first and had no idea what it would be throughout the whole fight. But then after that, you do get that really like concentrated practice of just Soul, his attacks, how you should move, dealing with the totems, you know, movement in and around all of that, that it will just make you a better player, even if you've never done it before. So I think it was super cool. And looking back at Echo bosses as a whole and the Echo orbs and just jumping straight into the boss fights, really cool detail. Loved it.
Yeah. I feel like I definitely now in hindsight, I want to go watch like other content creators and how they experience Echo Soul, because man, that was like the most fun thing ever for me. And I tried to get in there really fast on my Melee account, because at this point I've been like, you know, I've been like closing my eyes every time Coliseum shows up on anything, because I'm like I don't want to see, I just do not want to see any of the mechanics. I understand there's blue and that's about it. Like so.
Yeah, I was exactly the same. So Valamore, I think we're in agreement of, which is quite rare for us, actually. That's nice. What about least fun region? Because I have a feeling we might even agree on this one. Would you want to start? What do you think is the least fun region?
Least fun region. Man, this feels this feels so awful to say, but I think straight up my least fun region ended up being Mauritania.
Really?
Yeah, I think it's actually Mauritania.
No.
It's crazy. It's really crazy to say that, honestly.
Yeah.
But to me, I just feel like I like the content, but not all of it. I feel like Grotesque Guardians, I really didn't enjoy doing, mainly because I felt like the normal version was such a pain, and then the Echo version, I was already too strong by the time I got there because I felt gated out because of the normal version. It felt like the normal version gated me out, and then I get to the Echo version, and now I'm too strong to actually properly enjoy it. So that was like really, really frustrating for me personally.
Yeah.
And then I just feel like Theater of Blood is like, I mean, I had this criticism going into it, and I kind of felt like it would come true, but to me it ended up being that I don't like having to rely on other players to do raids.
Right.
And even though I could always find a group if I wanted to, I still felt like there was still this like almost necessity to have like a major, or at least somebody who can do freezers. And I think for me, that just killed the raid for me personally. It just like, I don't know what it is, but it was like every time I'm like, I want to go do theater. I'm like, oh, is there a freezer online? Or
you type it, you're asking your chat like, any majors want to come do hard mode?
Yeah, and it's just like, I don't know why, but I feel like that to me just like, it kills a lot of my enjoyment for a region. And like, I might just be like completely like poisoned on that, where I just like, I don't know, compared to like at least doing the other raids, I feel like I could just roll up to any raid and just do them. But with theater, that was always an issue. And yeah, I mean, outside of that, like I think the Gloves of the Damned just didn't end up feeling all that interesting for me. So all in all, like to me, I felt like Theater of Blood just ended up being like a purple printer. That's it. It was just printing out uniques. And honestly, I feel kind of bad because I feel like this is gonna sound like this is such a good problem to have. I felt like I was getting so many purples that I almost wanted to go back to normal and do regulars just so I could see some like regular drops too. But then like if your friends still need purples, it's like
you don't
like
want to gate them out with it,
like I'm down to help them out, but I also don't need like a 7th rapier, you know, like give me some mahogany seeds or something, you know what I mean? Like I don't know, I almost wish there was like a toggle to just turn on regular loot or something.
You wouldn't have that issue in Zaya, my man. You would not have that issue in Zaya, let me tell you. We'll get onto Zaya in a minute, but yeah, I'm with you.
But I don't know. That's just like that's how I felt like for me with Mauritania. And then kind of like how you mentioned earlier about like the combat achievements and you know the raid stuff. I felt like for me, I just had like a million tasks locked behind Nightmare and Theater of Blood. And like, it's still cool because like don't get me wrong, I love Theater of Blood. I think it's super fun. I think hard mode theater might be some of the most fun content I did, but like I just kind of wish that the rest of the zone was like a little bit more engaging for me, because right now I feel like I'm very much like, if you took theater out, or even if you just took hard mode theater out for me, I feel like the whole region would just feel so bad. And like I don't even hate Nightmare necessarily, but man, doing that boss and getting like 6 trout, it's actually just so like it's soul sucking in leagues. I'm like, man, why am I doing this? Like what am I doing here? I don't know.
The nightmare meme where it's like, you know, the trade request where it's like that is the Fasani's nightmare experience, and it is dreadful.
I thought the game was bugged. I thought I was like, oh, it's because I made so many mistakes, so that's why the my loot must have went down. I thought it was like one of those things. And then I'm like, and then my chat's on like, no, this is actually this is just what Nightmare dropped. I'm like, okay, well, I'm never touching this boss.
In the main game, like, I will not do it. I promise. Never.
Oh, one last thing I'll add in. I feel like I kind of hate that a large part of it is locked behind Sins of the Father. That started to kind of drive me a little bit nuts. Thinking back at it, like it might just be because I like put it off for so long because I just didn't want to do it. I should just literally like first thing I just sat down and did that quest. But man, I just always felt like there was like a big part that was missing for me. And I don't know, that just kind of sucked.
On my I didn't even end up doing Sins of a Father on my melee playthrough when I had Mori, but actually, interestingly, on my randomized playthrough, I got Total Recall, and I did use it during Sins of the Father, and it made it a lot quicker. But even then, it felt like a pain in the ass. It still felt like a massive detour, like an hour or however long it took of my time, that just could have been spent doing something else. There were a lot of... I feel like Mori actually was a bit more forgiving than some other regions when it came to like tasks locked behind quest completions. But Sins of a Father, like you say, locks out more content than it does like just the task itself for completing it, you know? I'm with you. If I can just quickly go back to some of the things you said, because Mauritania is not what I thought was the least fun region, but I agree with a lot of what you said. So I actually think that part of the reason you might feel like if you took hard mode Tab away and Nightmare away, there'd be nothing left in Mori. I think that's an actual, just like a bigger problem of Leagues 5 in general. And that is that this year, more than any other year that I've noticed, and I'm pretty sure if we go through the Relic passives, it will be pretty evident, the progression was faster than ever before. You know, they'd really moved forward all of the XP multipliers. You know, 12 times XP at what, tier 4?
Tier 5, but you got tier 5 was 12 times, but you got the double combat. You got the double combat and before the drop rate was at 4.
Right, and so the drop rate caps out
at tier 4. Yeah.
And the drop rate caps out pretty early. Like what I'm saying is like tier 5 feels like that break point where, like, sure, you get the 16 times multiplier later on at tier 7 or whatever it is, but even at tier 5, that feels like where your like progression just skyrockets and like locks out to the point where every piece of content in any other subsequent region you unlock beyond your first, because let's be honest, you could get to tier 5 just after unlocking one region. You could do one region, start digging into some content there, you've got tier 5, you unlock further regions, and all of a sudden, all of the stepping stone, quote unquote, stepping stone content that's in those regions feels irrelevant because you're already like way too strong for it. So like, I feel like it's a bigger symptom, the fact that most of Mori felt kind of like unfun. It's a bigger symptom of Leagues 5 being a bit too quick for progression, in my opinion, because you do just feel like way too strong, or you're way too far along to actually benefit from digging into that content, other than to tick off the, you know, the token task of, you know, complete this or complete that. I felt like they could have slowed it down a touch, you know?
Yeah. I mean, that's why like Barrow's grind just felt awful for me, because like I ended up just not really doing any much Barrows until I was just like straight up one-shotting them all. And like, man, Barrow, like, dude, comparing Barrows to like Perilous Moons, it's like, I feel like that's just why, like, I don't even want to say Mauritania is like the least fun region, because I feel like that feels so unfair. Like, it does have such a good raid, but like,
it does.
I feel like if I had to ever pick a region, like Mauritania is just last for me right now.
Fair.
So
wow,
like,
so you flipped it in terms of region. Well, I guess in terms of fun.
I still like, the thing is, I still think like if anybody asked me like should I go Mauritania, I would probably say yeah. Like I'd probably recommend it as a region, but I think like for me personally, it's just like I'm so done with that region right now, and that's like fair. I just don't want to. I don't know. I just don't really want to like go there anymore and stuff. And like ultimately, I think part of that is because if somebody wanted to do theater with me, I could just log onto my main and do it with them, you know? So it's not like I'm ever missing out on doing like theater with like your friends and stuff. And I had some of my like really old friends like from like middle school. We were doing Theater of Blood. They got Twisted Bow.
Nice.
And they were literally, I'm not even joking, they were rank 5 for hard mode. They didn't even have a banker's note yet. Like, and they got a Twisted Bow and they got to have fun doing it. And like, that's cool. Don't get me wrong. That's really cool. But it's also like, yeah, I don't know. It's just,
it sounds like an RNG game for you, man.
Yeah, I feel like I like theater. I don't like Mauritania. That's fair. Where I'm at right now. Yeah.
That's fair. I won't get into Mori too much because we've got a few other things to get through.
Sure.
My least fun region, and I'm sure people could have seen this coming from a mile away, Kandarin. I just feel like, and it may have been the fact that on my randomized account, I got absolutely shafted for relics, so they didn't particularly help me with the content there. But Kandarin has an issue. Number one, obviously, all of the teasers leading up to Leagues 5 were incredible. I don't want to take away from the fact that I still think this is the best league yet. So I don't want to take away from that at all. This isn't me just being negative. But Kandarin just felt like it offered nothing, first of all, as a region. Every unique angle that Kandarin offered could be picked up elsewhere. You know, Grimoire for Piety. The mage gear was just like, I mean, let's not even bother talking about that because you had Fremi jewelry, you had the trident from Zora, you had the shadow from pretty much any other raid anyway. So I feel like everything Kandarin typically offered was overshadowed. But that aside, the reason I think Kandarin's was just like the least fun region was I looked through the task list the other day, filtered it just to Kandarin, and the tasks just involve either group content that you will never find a group for, Barbarian Assault, Fishing Trawler. Fair enough, you can solo Fishing Trawler, but it's not the most fun. Barbarian Assault, Fishing Trawler, just to name two. You've got Chompy Bird Hunting. God damn it. I was really hoping I'd never have to shoot another Chompy again in my life. Castle Wars. Like, I know it's not the region's fault that that's the content that is within it, but I feel like some of those tasks could have been avoided and they could have been placed elsewhere. It just felt like a lot of the tasks that fell in Kandarin relied on either other people or content that just isn't great. That's my take on Kandarin in a nutshell. I feel like it can offer some really good things. Like, yeah, Ardy has a lot of fun things for thieving. Kandarin also has some of the best NPCs to pickpocket for clues if you do go dodgy deals into the Clue Arbiter. But otherwise, I feel like unless you're picking, like I said at the beginning, unless you're picking very specific relics that synergize with that region, Kandarin can quickly feel like you've just turned the game onto hard mode and onto slow mode at the same time. That's how I feel about Kandarin.
Yeah, I mean, I would... it sucks because, like, I think Kandarin is the worst region, and the sad part is it's, like, not for any, like, good reasons, basically. So, like, personally, I don't mind a lot of the content that you mentioned. Like, I don't really mind Chompy hunting that much. I don't know why. I think it's just kind of silly. Like, Fishing Trawler is pretty bad. I agree. Barbarian Assault, I actually like Barbarian Assault.
Oh, I don't mind playing it, but like I couldn't find a team
I don't mind finding
for the life of me.
Same problem that I had, and I feel like I kind of got lucky because, you know, obviously I have like people I can find with like stream stuff, and I think me and you, Jack, we ended up just doing it together on our stupid
really?
Kandarin builds. Yeah,
nice.
We're like sending some runs. We got it all done and stuff. And we just knocked it all out one day. For me, the problem and why I like really started to hate Kandarin was because more than any other region like combined, it felt like the most like untested and unplayed. And I just felt like there were so many bugs and issues with Kandarin that just really started to like, it started to just like grind my gears because I was like, I hate this region and it's completely not the region's fault. Yeah. But like, I'm sure you noticed this, right? Because I think I saw this first on your stream where Corner Cutter doesn't work with monkey laps. Right?
It doesn't work on monkey laps.
Like, which is insane because I think the first thing you think of when you saw Corner Cutter gives you laps, everyone's like, oh, okay, that's actually really good for Kandarin. And like, it just doesn't work. Like, and then like, that's not even, but the thing is like, that's not even it. Temple of Icove NPC is just straight up missing. You can't do it.
Oh, really?
There's a Slayer task. Yeah, the Temple of Icove NPC. Probably
I didn't even try.
Defender of Varrock
I didn't even try.
Yeah, no, I went to go do that quest because I needed to get my like ranged up, and they're just missing. And I was like, oh, okay. Like, is this the end of the world? No, but like, there's more. Defeat a Bloodveld in Kandarin. I feel like that was like, to me, that felt almost like a meme. Like, I don't know how. Because the thing is, there are Bloodvelds in the cave, but you can't get assigned Bloodvelds in Kandarin. So you have to have another region that assigns Bloodvelds, even though it's specifically defeat a Bloodveld in Kandarin. And I know that this was a problem in previous leagues, which probably should have been fixed by now. And that's why I feel like it's just been an oversight. But like almost every other region had an expanded Slayer task list this year, but you still can't get Bloodvelds. I ended up grinding Slayer for 3 hours and then spending 450 points trying to get an Aberrant Spectre task in Kandarin before realizing that you cannot get assigned Aberrant Spectres in Kandarin, even though it's in the Slayer. It's like imagine you're in Fremi and you can't get assigned Kurasks.
Yeah.
Like, what? Like, things like that.
Wait, is that legit? Wait, can you?
You can't.
Am I dumb? Can you not kill
it.
the creatures in the gnome stronghold thing off task?
You can't. Yeah, you just can't. He
For
doesn't
real?
let you.
Yeah, it says here, anyone can enter the dungeon, but players can only attack the Slayer monster they were assigned. That's a big oversight.
Yeah,
That's
like
huge.
it's awful, and it just like to me it was like really annoying because I was like, okay, like I can't do aberrant, which are a good task. I can't do
great
blood
for
fills, which
farming
are
herbs.
a good task. Like it was just really, I don't know. To me, it just ended up, and I was like, okay, I guess I'm just doing fire giants and hellhounds for my Slayer. I guess like it was really really frustrating. Probably the biggest, this is the most egregious example, is that Sherlock will give you clue steps that you just can't complete.
Yeah.
Especially elites, right?
Yeah.
And like, just like with monkey laps, you're being kind of compelled to go there with agility. Kandarin is like the clue region, right?
That and
now it's
right?
like if you didn't pick clue arbiter, right? Which I think I would have done on my first. If I had to pick Kandarin on my, I would have picked dodgy deals, farmed out 1 million clues, and then not even bothered with clue arbiter because I have so many of them, right? I could just cycle through them all. Well, now you get Sherlock, and you have to drop every 10 elite clues because he keeps giving you impossible tasks, and it's like. Yeah, the region sucks, but it's not even like Kandarin's fault. I feel like, you know what I mean? It's just, it feels like I don't know. It feels like it wasn't tested. And that's what made me so frustrated with Kandarin, because I was just getting more and more annoyed at I felt like I was playing against the game and playing on I felt like I was playing Leagues 2, basically. That's kind of how I felt, where every other region felt like it had grown up over the course of 5 years.
Yeah. No, I agree. And I think especially if you pick Kandarin first, I had that exact issue. I picked Kandarin first. I got assigned it on my randomized account. I tried to do a clue scroll. First step, speak to Sherlock. He wants me to do something that I can't do. And I just think, I already know what my life is now kind of submitted to, having picked Kandarin. And it wasn't going to be made any easier. So yeah, that was really difficult. Like I say, I think if you pick certain relics that really do synergize well with Kandarin, you can have a better time there. Dodgy deals or clue arbiter, one or the other.
You basically need clue arbiter. You're not going to do your clues, or you have to save very specific tasks and swap them. So I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, it's tricky. And even then, I feel like sometimes the things people have to say about Kandarin that are positive are things that are very, very temporary, small, short-term issues. So people always say oh, it's a great region for thieving early. You've got the stalls, you've got some of the early game quests like Waterfall, Fight Arena, all of those. They are all nice, sure. But even if you took them away, you would get over the issue of needing those within a few hours. And I just felt like it was a very empty region. And not just because there weren't any people there, because I genuinely feel like in my entire time playing in Kandarin on that account, I saw 4 people. And I thought that was generous. I was actually surprised, but I only saw 4 people the entire time. So not only was it an empty region, but I felt like content-wise, it really was quite empty as well. And again, I get why Jagex might have just decided to kind of like Kandarin this time around because of all of the quality of life changes they've made to other content, other regions, relics. The component pieces now dropping full items makes Kandarin kind of obsolete as well in a way. But I feel like if it's going to be there as a choice, it needed to have something to offer. And it really didn't this year. So something that I think, my chat were talking about earlier was, why didn't they just start everyone in Kandarin again this year? And I thought that would have been a fun way to do it. Fair enough, don't give us Misthalin and Karamja, but why not start us all in Catherby again? That would have been a nice kind of way to give everyone Kandarin without making it too easy with having Misthalin and Karamja as well. And then also you don't feel so bad for being in Kandarin.
Yeah, speaking of not having any late game stuff, man, the Devil's Element, it stinks.
Wait, hold on. I haven't got there yet on the randomized account. I can't get into it too much. I can't get into it. I haven't done ecothermy yet. That's a tomorrow or day after job. So I'm sorry, we can't really talk about that.
Yeah, okay, no, I won't spoil that just yet. What I will say though is what I
but it stinks. The Devil's Element.
Well, when I say it stinks, to me, the reason why I am frustrated with it is because it's gated behind 93 Slayer. That's to me, that's so...
That's late.
That's so late, yeah. I don't know, just compare that to something else where almost all the other Echo bosses, you have access to them fairly early, right? If
you're good enough, you could walk into Echo Sol day 1.
Yeah, you could. And yeah, and like that's pretty cool to me. But then like and the worst part is like, it's like the whole time I was doing the Slayer grind, I was wishing I had the Devil's Element. And then like by the time I'm 93 Slayer, I'm already like,
You're
okay,
maxed.
well now my mind is
You're
I'm like
maxed
kind of
already.
moving on to other things. Yeah, I like don't really want to be doing this as much. So that really I don't know, that was what kind of like upset me. And then also like I know you mentioned like tasks could have been moved. Thermi doesn't have any kill count tasks attached to it, which like I get it, that might be worse, but also why does it only have one task to kill it one time? It is like,
and isn't it just an 80 pointer as well?
It's
so
a 30 pointer.
Oh, it's a 30 pointer
to kill it one time.
Yeah, that's even worse.
There's an 80 point to kill a smoke devil one time.
Yeah.
And there's, I think, an 80 point to equip an occult. And that's it. And I'm like, why doesn't that at least have like 50 kills or like 150 kills, right? Because like, it's like, I get it. Killing ecothermy or like killing thermi is also not like the most best content ever, but like it just felt weird when I'm like, why does this have no tasks attached?
The requirement is high enough that I think the reward should have been there just as a sort of, congratulations, you got to 93 Slayer, you went out of your way to do this to get to thermi. Rather than reward you for actually fighting thermi, at least bump the points up for getting to that point in the first place, because 93 Slayer, as you say, it's late. And by the time you're there, you've already lost like 90% of the use that you might have got out of wanting to double your elemental bonus. Yep. And I don't know about you, but what regions did you pick with Kandarin?
So well, for me, I didn't do a random vote. I did a chat voted build.
Oh yeah, okay.
So I went Kandarin, Tyrannwyn, and Wildy. Those were with the mage build. Okay.
So at least in Tyrannwyn you get a little bit of like fire elemental exploit out of Zora, but in Wildy there's nothing.
There's KBD.
Oh, KBD with water.
Yeah, but then you have to wear a dragon shield, so you can't really wear the element.
It's
pretty whack. I end up liking okay, I will say I feel like I'm not the problem that I had when I went Kandarin is also that I was randomizing tasks. That was like the second part of my thing. It was chat voted everything, and then tasks were randomly selected from a wheel. Yeah. So I felt like I wasn't able to exploit the early game, do all the super easy tasks of Kandarin necessarily. Yeah. But that wasn't really my problem with Kandarin was just all the problems with it.
That's fair.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we both have kind of pulled out as much as we can from those regions. And I feel like we both came onto this call before we started recording saying how good this league is. So again, it's not negativity just for the sake of it. I think they're totally valid reasons that hopefully we don't encounter in future leagues, because who knows if League 6 is, going to come around and it's got a Trailblazer element again. I'm hoping it's something different when it comes to breaking down, region locks or whatever it is.
I will say that I think my favorite part of Kandarin, and this kind of sums up the entire thing for me. I got randomly assigned the task, equip a Trident of the Seas. And my fastest way to get that, because I was only 70 Slayer, was to do Zulrah and then dismantle the Trident of the Swamp instead of doing Kraken. That's actually what we came up with, because I was like, I'm either going to sit and just do Zulrah and get the Trident and dismantle it, or I could grind 87. And I was like, man, Kandarin really sucks. If
87 and 93 Slayer. 87 and 93 Slayer. And realistically, for Demonic Gorillas, you want tier 6 for the Prayer Pen, or at least you want your off-style gear to be good as well. It still feels like Demonic Gorillas were, in my eyes, just not any more fun in leagues. If I had the Sunlight Spear, would have been a different story. The typeless damage would have been so much fun there. But two regions I didn't really think about mixing, so it is what it is.
Yep.
All right, so moving us on then. We're going to go in kind of backwards.
Sure, let's do it.
Thingy. So now we're talking about combat style. Why don't you go first? What for you was the most fun combat style?
Yeah, so I think for me, what I ended up feeling the most fun combat style was melee. And I think melee, the reason why I love melee so much is because I felt like it just had the most diversity of weapons. We've already talked about the Sunlight Spear, but we have not talked about the Khopesh and the Wildy, which I thought was so I was not very excited about it at first, but man, it ended up just doing some really cool stuff. It made Slayer tasks pretty damn cool when you could just auto retaliate and just 100 mobs disappear in front of you in 5 minutes. Like,
yeah.
Khopesh was really cool. Even the shield giving you like all the full immunity and stuff like that, like, which I would consider that to be like a melee weapon, so to speak, because it is like basically a new defender, so you don't have to go Asgarnia. But yeah, between like Khopesh and Sunlight Spear, and even things like Zombie Axe feeling really strong, and like the even things like, you know, the Maqueedles from Perilous Moons, like there's just like, I felt like there was just a Scythe, like Fang was cool. Like there's just like, Fang was not really that strong, but it just felt like I was constantly like excited about new weapons, and I didn't really get that experience as much with Magic and Ranged.
That's fair. You know what? I might as well put it out there now, because we're of exactly the same opinion. My most fun combat style, in my opinion, was also melee. Played ranged on my first playthrough, and I'm just going to throw it out there straight away. I feel like tier 6 ranged was so good, quote unquote good, that it was bad in a way. Because I'll get onto it in a minute, because we'll talk more about it. But I feel like never missing ultimately limits what choices you want to use, because you don't want to waste never missing. So of course you're going to pick the thing that hits the hardest or hits the fastest, and that's it. While as with melee, it didn't really have that issue. You know, the echo element to the Masteries didn't actually favor multi-hitting weapons as much as I thought it was going to, because the percentage chance was so low. So it still felt like those big heavy hitting weapons like the Noxious Halberd, like the Zombie Axe, even the barrel chest.
Mentioned the halberd, that's so cool.
Yeah, exactly. Even
so
the barrel chest anchor and like stuff like that. Even the meme weapons, they were all so much fun. And I just felt like melee had the flexibility this year. I said it on stream. I've said it to like anyone who's asked me. Melee was the most fun combat style for me. The most fun build with melee was the Sunlight Spear stuff, but I got to play with, like you say, the full Blood Moon set. I got to use a Scythe for a bit. I got to play around with the Zombie Axe and the Noxious Halberd. I got to it just felt like there was really nice gear progression. And it also felt like you could substitute one thing for another thing in a certain scenario. And sure, DPS wise, it might be a tiny bit less, but actually it wasn't really noticeable, and it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, and I think even outside of like just the weapons, which obviously melee just, I think, won by far, had the most cool weapons. Even Nature's Reprisal giving you that ranged melee option, Noxious Halberd, kind of the same thing where you're able to attack from ranged. And then like even I think the other half of the equation is armor, because armor opened up a lot for melee as well, because you had the Blood Moon set, you could do Barrow set, Tyrannwyn became an option with the Blessing, Asgarnia is an option, Inquisitor gear, just like Justy gear for tankiness. Like there's so much gear for melee that actually matters and feels good to get and to progress through. Whereas like the problem that I had with range was, it wasn't just that the weapon progression was very boring, it was that all the other progression, like, listen, it's fun to do the entire game in the same clue set that I got like day 2, but like it's fun, but it's also like it does take away that component where for me, like it was basically your weapon and then the Framinic jewelry, and nothing else matters, because
that was it.
Like that was it. And there's like range accuracy just straight up does not matter, and the amount of range strength options you have are so limited, and they're weak too. So like I'm not going to go desert for like a tiny bit from Masori and a little bit from, well, Venator, or the ring doesn't even matter, because Fremnik to me, I think I didn't like that aspect where I felt like I just wasn't really looking forward to any gear. And like I definitely made the fun on my own, because I didn't really like rush the Tebow as early, and instead I was doing things like farming dragon knives for like the spec, and I thought that was pretty silly and pretty enjoyable, and like I mean, I still enjoyed like progressing through the different knives, because like when I got my first dragon darts and stuff, I was like, oh, this is so sick. I got my dragon knives dropped, that was really cool. But it just felt like in a lot of ways it still has that issue of like you could just rune crossbow everything, and then you just Tebow everything, and like game is just not, there's just no like niche or like variety there that exists.
Would you say that's the least fun combat style then, for that reason? Like, is that what you're getting at?
No, I would not say it's the least fun combat style.
Okay, well, before you get onto that then, because it's clearly going to be magic, but while we're talking about range, because I'm going to agree with you on the least fun combat style too, but while we're talking about range, let's give it a moment. I agree. I did rush a T-bow, and as soon as I had it, that was it. All the doors closed. There's a few scenarios that you don't use a T-bow in, that sure, you just stick on a blowpipe or darts, and that's it. You know? It's either blowpipe, darts, or knives. We're putting them all in the same category. Thrown weapons / blowpipe, one tick. T-bow, done. There's no reason to use anything else, unfortunately. And that is definitely how it felt. Even those more fun, memey ranged weapons that I was hoping would, not even necessarily keep up DPS-wise, but feel fun to use. Dark bow, ballista. Well, they're the only two that I can really think of right now. But dark bow and ballista, pretty fun, memey, like ranged weapons that don't get much love. I tried both of them in kind of one build or another. And yeah, they just didn't feel good. Like in any way, they didn't compare. So that was a shame. And I feel like this year for ranged, it was quite a telling experience. Like whenever someone dropped into my chat and said like, hey man, I'm doing a ranged build. What region should I pick? And it got to the point where I just started saying like, bro, just pick Fremennik. And then whatever else you want, it really doesn't matter. Just pick Fremennik. And then if you want a twisted bow, pick a range region, a raid region. And that's it. You're set. Fremennik, raid region. Doesn't matter which one it is. Doesn't matter what else you pick with it. You're done.
I'm so glad you said that. Oh my god, I've been saying that, and I feel like I feel bad because I'm like, man, they think I'm giving them the most like non-answer ever, and I'm like, that's literally just it. You just pick Fremennik, you pick a raid, and then that's it. And that's if you want a team. If you don't, like, just go do whatever you want. You're fine. Like, it's just totally chill. Like, it doesn't really matter past that. So, and
I guess that's nice in a way to like not like to have the flexibility. I guess it's nice to be like, okay, I guess I just need Fremennik, and then I don't need to overthink my other two regions. But the reality of it, the practicality of just using that Fremy jewelry with, I don't know, a full frog outfit. Like, it's fun and it's memey for day 1, day 2, day 3, day 4. You're like, okay, novelty's worn off. I'm kind of bored. Where's my gear progression? Oh, it doesn't exist. That's it. So it was fun. It was really good. I don't want to hate on range too much because I think the Masteries were an incredible addition to this league. But I feel like tier 6 range may be too strong for its own good.
Well, and I honestly, like, I feel kind of weird because I don't think the problem is necessarily the Masteries. I think ranged, if you look at all 6 of them, they are so beautiful in how they complement each other with you're never missing, you're getting the max hit. The third one feels like a massive step up, unlocking some darts and knives. And maybe that was a little bit problematic of how strong it was right off of tier 3. And then like tier 5 opens up a lot of options. Tier 6 opens up, like, the progression of ranged Masteries is so incredible. Everything works well together. Nothing feels passive. The healing even feels good with the static, that makes you like incentivized to go with faster choices. It's just that, like, I feel like it's almost like it's not the Masteries the problem, it's the game that just doesn't suit them very well. When
do you think
range strength doesn't really like I think, for example, personally for me, I love not missing. I love that. I hate hitting zeros.
No one likes hitting zeros.
The problem that I have is that the whole range gear is based around accuracy. So, you're kind of eliminating the entire style there. And that's to me, that's more of the issue, less about necessarily never missing. It's just that I feel like it was like a mismatch there. Or like if ranged gear, like for example, like a melee you never miss, you would still have a lot of different pieces you wanted to go for.
Yeah, of course. Melee strength has a lot more flexibility, doesn't it? But
yeah, exactly.
See, I think that we might differ on that, only because I think that the Masteries need to complement the game and the game not the Masteries, because the game's been there for years and years. So like for me, what I would love to see, doesn't matter about this league because it's here now, it's been and gone, whatever. But what I would love to see if they go down this Mastery route again, and again, this is going to be a lot of work. I don't think they'll ever do it. But for range, there needs to be almost at least 2 trees going down each style, because for this league, when you look at the range tree, you're absolutely right. They complement each other really, really nicely. The speeding up of attack speed is standard, but then that complemented range so well because you'd be hitting more damage on subsequent hits up to 5. You'd be healing every 5 hits. It just felt like good. But when you look at that, and if you just read it back to yourself, you start to realize that actually this range tree was just designed for fast hitting range weapons. And actually, a whole mastery tree designed to complement in the main, only one style of ranged weapon feels kind of bad. And I think that if they'd done 2 ranged trees and had one that complemented slower ranged weapons, things like the dark bow, things like the ballet, and just slower ranged things like even crossbows in general would also have their time and their own kind of way of playing that way. And I think that would be incredibly fun. And if they did that for each style, so if they had two trees for melee as well, one that maybe complemented 2-handed weapons, one that complemented 1-handed, I don't know how they would do it, but I do feel like one tree for each style was a bit too limiting and a bit too telling of exactly what weapons they wanted to buff. You know,
right.
It was range, like throwing knives for range. For melee, they were trying to buff multi-hitting weapons and like scythe being the king. For magic, bro, I don't even know what they were trying to do for magic. Like I couldn't look at that tree and be like, oh yeah, they want to buff that. I have no idea what was going on with magic.
Yeah, I think like even like, so here's what I thought about like melee, for example, was like, I don't think you need to have like necessarily like 2 separate trees, but even like one node that like splits into 3, for example. Like, yeah, I thought it'd be cool if like, imagine like the tier 4 node for melee or something was like plus 150 stab, plus 150 crush, or plus 150 slash.
And then you kind of,
and now it's like, you are super accurate in that style.
Yeah.
And that's going to change based on what weapons you have, you know, and that might influence, maybe you are going to go for a bit of a crush build instead, because all the things you have are like weak to crush, you know, and I think something like that would have been kind of cool, because you're still pretty accurate, but like, I think for range, for example, if you had to spec into like thrown bows or crossbows, that might be kind of good, because it is kind of weird where it's just like, okay, you use like steel knives until like rune crossbows. I don't know. I did enjoy though. Like again, I did enjoy ranged a lot, and I had more fun with it than I thought I would. Yeah. It's just the gearing process to me felt very like one dimensional. I think the worst thing that happened to me, honestly, this was my mistake too, is one day I just simmed the T-bow and I started feeling depressed. I was like, oh no, it's really that good, huh? Like it really is that good. So, until then I was doing like, I called it the knife juggler build, because I was just doing dragon darts and dragon knives. I didn't have any blowpipes.
It's cool that you went out of your way to get that though, because for me, I picked Tyrinwin, rushed crystal armor and Bofa, and then I just used that to spam chambers until I got a T-bow, which came pretty early, like day 3 T-bow, and I was just like, that's my league done. Like, not okay, slight exaggeration, but like that's the pinnacle of range gear right there, and it's like, that's it. Now I just use this weapon, and then that's it. But it was still fun. I did enjoy ranged, but you know what? I don't want to sidetrack us too much, because we've still got relics to get onto. Yeah,
we got some stuff.
So you think magic is the worst combat style? Talk me through it.
Yeah, I think so. So it's kind of weird. Like, I will say, like, my experience playing magic is very different, because it was with random regions and random relics, so I didn't get to like properly optimize. I'm actually working right now on creating what I consider to be like a somewhat optimal mage build, of picking good regions for mage and stuff, and that's going to be a bit more of my test. But even so far from my experience of it, like, I have 2 major problems with magic, and that's that the accuracy just feels awful, like really awful, until you get shadow, which is kind of the same problem I had last year, to be honest. It's just you're bad until you get shadow. The other issue that I have is the mage masteries are just so incoherent that I don't really even know what they do a lot of the time. Like, they just don't make sense to me, and compared to range and even compared to like melee, I just like it just feels so unfinished with the masteries, and that to me is like a bigger problem. I don't even necessarily care if the damage is lower than the other 2. That doesn't really matter to me. The damage still feels fine. No, it's just it's just weird when I'm like, for example, I mean, I was doing Echo Hispori last night to try to get the trumpet, because I thought Nature's Reprisal would be like the early game option. I have 97 magic. I'm casting Fire Wave. Hispori is supposed to have 100% elemental weakness, and I'm still splashing like 6-7 times in a row. And it's just I mean, it's just like my heart is just dying out here, because I'm just watching myself miss. And I'm like, what am I supposed to do? Like, do I grind out brimstone chests for a mystic piece? Like, I don't, I'm 97 magic. Like, what do I do here? I don't know. It was pretty soul draining having to do that. And and then the masteries They don't feel like they're working as intended. I don't feel like I'm getting these like massive executes. And if anything, I think the really big hits end up feeling kind of awkward because it's like, oh wow, I hit like a 80 or a 90, and then the next hit's like a 2, and it's like oh man, dude, like I think the more consistent range, I like sorely miss that, where at least you're always hitting like somewhere in, you know, the teens, the 20s kind of.
Yeah. No, I get that. I haven't done an optimal mage build, so I can't really comment on like what max mage feels like. But what I was just talking about before this, when we were talking about combat masteries and magic in general, I looked through that magic tree and I just struggled to imagine what weapon besides the shadow really stands out. Don't get me wrong, Nightmare Staff, always going to be insane. Shadow, always going to be insane. Sang Staff, always going to be great. And Trident, they're just going to be good magic weapons. But like, I just didn't see the synergy but from like mastery to mastery, like building up a sort of picture of like, right, so this is the play style they're going for here. It just did not feel like magic benefited. And I do feel, in a way, sympathetic for the JMods, because I think Mod Rice commented on this in the Discord before leagues went live when the masteries were originally teased. Magic is just in a weird place in old school RuneScape in general, isn't it? You know, if you don't have a magic damage multiplier on a piece of gear, you almost just want to kind of like pick it up like this and just like put it in the bin. Like you just don't want anything to do with it because it's not actually benefiting your build too much. Magic accuracy is great, sure, but it's very easy to come by outside of like, you know, leagues or Iron Man game mode. So magic is in a weird spot gear-wise. I'm sure that's part of the issue. And like, I can't wait to see what the some of the new ideas they've got for magic. So you know the new fire giant and ice giant boss that's coming out, and the magic stuff that's associated with that, the slower magic hits that's going to have, but the more damage that it has. I would have liked to have seen more of that in for this league, but again, I guess we can't, you know, have it all. And magic is just in a very static place, it feels like. You know, everything's attacking on around-ish the same ticks, like it's either 5 or 4, let's be honest.
Well, it's the worst thing is that it's actually worse than that, because by default, all your spells are 5 tick, right? So standards, ancients are all 5 tick. Well, early game, you only have 80%, right? So you're going from 5 tick to 4 tick, right? Yeah. Then as you progress a bit more into mage, okay, well, now you have powered staves, you have trident and warped scepter and all that. Well, those are all 4 tick. And at this point, you're at tier 5. So you're getting 4 tick weapons to 2 tick weapons, right? And so, but the thing is, your 5 tick to 2 tick standard spells aren't that far behind. So it feels like your jump there is so minimal, because you're jumping from like I mean, again, if you compare it to something like range, where range is obviously the big winner because it has like darts and knives and all that. But like if you compare it to melee, for example, you're going from, you know, maybe like a scimitar or something like that, or you're probably going from, you know, a 4 tick weapon, right? And then you're progressing into a 5 tick weapon. Now that has that extra bonus and it really feels a lot stronger, and it's like a completely new weapon. Well, for me, it felt like I just stepped up like one tiny little baby thing. Like I'm like, okay, well, ice barrage or like even like fire spells or whatever, they're hitting like 28. Okay, now I got to try it and it hits a 30. But it's the same speed. So it's like, it just feels really whack, where it's like it's almost like, can you imagine like if you went from using like imagine if you went from like zombie axe to like whip or something, and that was your progression.
It's minimal. It's minimal and like, only in really a certain style, you know?
Yep. And then, oh man, I remember, I grinded demonic gorillas, got super lucky, Zenite at like 20 kills. I go equip my tormented bracelet, max damage went up by 1. Let's freaking go. You know what I mean? I'm like, 31 up to 32. And it's like, oh man, like it's like, because like all the damage is so scaled around like shadow, so it's like it just feels really whack and stuff. I don't know. That just upset me kind of, where it just felt like the masteries were almost like working against me in a lot of ways. And you know, one thing that I should have thought about in our build-up conversation, because I was really excited about the Devil's Element, and I was really excited to see whether it would pop off with elemental weakness. Bro, it didn't even click to me that if you want to do that, you also need Fremi, because you're not going to be able to make Wrath Runes, and you're not going to be able to use the surge spells. Like, sure, you could get lucky at Vorkath and you could get some drops,
And like they might last you a little while if you're lucky. But again, you would need Kandarin and Fremi. So you need 2 regions as a minimum to kind of benefit from using at the best possible elemental spells. And that's just like a realization that came to me really late that I think really took away from magic in general. That was like, right, okay, if I want to actually use the Devil's Element, what am I doing here? Okay, I want a Nightmare Staff. That's Mauritania. I want to do the best possible elemental spells. There you go. It's KMF, and that's literally it. And it just felt like there was only really one possible route for maxing elemental spells this league, and that was kind of sad considering there was a whole echo item dedicated to it. So I don't know, that kind of felt bad to me.
Yeah, I will say the only thing I've kind of, because like, I mean, everybody asked me like, how would you fix mage, right? And it's like, okay, where do we begin, right?
Yeah.
But for me, I think obviously I think mage just needs like probably a bigger check in the main game, like we kind of mentioned.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
I feel like the one thing I actually, and this is where my mage build started to feel really fun for me personally.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, again, it's a chat voted thing, so take it as you will. Maybe I'm just Stockholm syndromed into like whatever they give me at this point.
Dude, like
yeah, but with Kandarin, Tyrannwyn, and the Wildy, no shadow, like no nothing basically. What ended up kind of feeling fun for me was now that I'm in the late game, I actually have a lot of weird like specialist weapons that actually end up covering all my bases. So Gauntlet doesn't need anything because you're going in there fresh anyways, right? So it doesn't matter. Mage actually feels really good in the Gauntlet.
Yeah, it does. Yeah.
Okay, for Zulrah and things like any elemental weakness, I have the Devil's Element to help me there, right? And then in the Wildy, I'm using Thammer Scepter everywhere anyways. So I actually have a weapon there. And then I actually have a lot of demons, and that's where like the Purging Staff ended up kind of carrying me. So in a lot of like weird ways, once I kind of like assembled all these weird specialist weapons, I kind of did have everything fully locked up. But at the same time, it's also like, and that kind of feels cool that like you're grinding for a weapon and then like it kind of worked. But at the same time, like the effort that went into even setting that up and then just being reliant on like, okay, like Thammer Scepter's just carrying me through the whole Wildy basically, things like that just felt kind of not that great. And I just feel like if that was like the intended method, I think they needed to go a lot harder into it. And I think in general, like I think the whole mage combat mastery probably needed to like be a lot different. It almost felt like I almost feel like they like gave up halfway with the mage one and then started putting in the others and stuff like that, like the speed reductions and stuff. Like what if the speed had actually stayed the same? And that was what mage did. Mage just did like 200s or something like that.
That's what I mean. Like
crazy. Yeah.
They were saying, one of the first things you see is increases damage for time taken between attacks, but then it's like, oh wait, it's still got the universal attack speed buff at tiers 3 and 5. So like, how much am I really benefiting from this, other than my first hit against every new NPC after I'd not hit something for a while? I don't know. Yeah, it just felt like kind of like anti-synergy a lot of times in the mage tree. And
also the execute feels bad because if you miss, you still don't execute, right? So like,
really?
There's sometimes I'm not gonna lie, every time I was doing the fight caves, right? And I go to hit one of the little fire dudes that have 10 HP and it misses. And I'm like, oh my, because I'm already moving on to the next mob in my head.
Combat task failed right there, buddy.
Yeah, I know. It's just like, I feel like at least giving 100% accuracy on the first hit would have been nice because missing your execute feels
that would be like
bad.
Berserker packed into a mastery, and that would have been really nice,
Yeah,
really
and
nice.
it also would mean, like, in a lot of ways, I feel like the cool part is it almost makes single target areas feel like multi because you can attack every mob and you're never put in combat because you're always one-shotting. Yeah. But man, there's like one time that you miss and there's a mob just punching you and now you're stuck in combat and then you have to wait like 6 seconds to get out of combat and it's like, oh, like
everyone
I just
knows
hate
that
it.
feeling.
And
everyone disliked
you're
that.
using ancients anyways, so it's just like every time I miss, I would just. It's like a part of me is just like my soul is leaving my body.
Everyone disliked that, 100%. No, I get it. But it's interesting you say that, trying to think about this just positively before we move on, that there was quite a few, because I guess I didn't really divert too much, or at least in my randomized build, I don't have those options. But like you say, for the Wildy, Thammer Scepter, the Demon Bane weapons were actually really good, but I will just quickly put out there that doesn't matter that Tormented Demons were available from the get-go with Misthalin. You were rarely going back there and ready to fight them until you already had gear that kind of surpass the Demon Bane weapons. Like, other than in a very few like situations, like maybe against Duke or maybe against Krill or I guess against like Echo Cerberus. If you would pick in those regions, then yeah, maybe you go out your way to grind that. Otherwise, let's be honest, you're probably going back to do Tormented Demons because you need the points towards Dragon Cup or towards Tier 8. And at that point, you don't really need the weapons. So it was kind of cool to hear that you were using the Purge and stuff, because I think that is a relatively new addition that a lot of people have actually found is just really good, like in a lot of content. So maybe, you know, maybe we are moving towards like a healthier place for Magic. I just hope that this time next year when we're having this conversation, Magic isn't in the bin. That's just what I hope.
Yeah, and I think, again, like, I will say, like, Magic definitely needs work, but it's like, it's surprisingly close, I think, to being fun. It just needed, like, I feel like if it had Never Miss, for example, it would already be like way, way, way better. In fact, my current, like, this is my sort of like idea right now, is I'm worried that what ended up happening was Mage was too good at first, and then they had to scale it back because they were really worried that you get into the same situation as last year. In fact, it'd be even worse because everybody's going, what is everybody asking for in Chambers and in theater? They're asking for a Major. They're asking for a Freezer.
Yeah.
Can you imagine if Mage was the best and everybody was playing Mage and you're a Ranger or a Melee trying to get into theater? You're never getting picked. Okay,
absolutely not. Especially if Mage doesn't miss. People would be looking at Rangers like, nah, we don't want you.
You're never getting picked.
We don't want you.
You're never ever getting picked, right? Like, because why would you ever take somebody instead of a Major that can just carry you through theater and do all the freezes, right?
I mean, that was Leagues 4 kind of all over again, wasn't it? Leagues 4, just like everyone was picking Mage. It was so good. I guess, you know, it's had its time now. Yeah, that's it.
But yeah, that's where I'm at. I mean, again, it just feels like it needs a little bit more work on the Masteries.
I agree. Relics. Now, I feel like there's a lot we could say about Relics, but let's keep it like succinct. Here's the two questions. Well, the two categories I have, because I feel like at first it was just best worst relic, best relic, worst relic, and then your favorite relic combo.
Okay.
Because I think there's a lot of cool relic combos out there. And I got asked quite a lot, like, what are your favorite like relic combinations together? And there's quite a few like to think of there. For relic combo, Reloaded into something is a perfectly valid reason. But do you want to go first, or do you want me to go first?
I'll have you go. I've been ranting about Mage for like. I'll have you talk here if you want to do your best relic. Or do you want to do all three? Or,
no. Let's start with best relic.
Best relic. Okay.
For me, I think the best relic was Reloaded. And I really thought about this quite a lot. Because originally I might have gone with like the basic, sorry to offend if either you or someone out there is thinking this. At first I was thinking like, oh, do I go down the basic like neuron activated last stand pick and just say like, oh yeah, last stand is fantastic because, not because like, oh, you know, at least if I make a mistake, I stay alive, but more because like number go up a lot with last stand, you know, you die, your stats go up to 255. They're crazy. If I had to pick a second place, it would be last stand. But I think Reloaded is, in my opinion, the best relic because historically this has never been a thing, right? Your choices are permanent. They're locked in. And how many leagues have there been where I think someone has had relic regret? I would argue in every single league, there's been hundreds, if not thousands of people that have had relic regret. And I think this is the first league that has allowed you, you know, at the perfect halfway mark, tier 4 out of 8 tiers, to think, right, what is my build missing? I've had enough time to think about this now. Progression is still fast, but you know, now the tiers are going to start to slow down. Am I struggling for Herblore? Do I actually want to go back to tier 2 and actually sort out like thieving or agility or, god damn it, everyone knows it's not agility, but you know what I mean. Where do I want to go back and what do I want to sort? So I thought Reloaded was really, really cool. I think what they should have done is just grayed out the teleport options when you click on Reloaded so that you literally don't have the option to go back and pick them. That would have been nice. Yeah, I think Reloaded for me. What about you?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like in hindsight, that's feel like I would almost definitely say the same. But like for me, the thing is that I don't really treat Reloaded as a relic. I just treat it as like a choice of 6, essentially. That's kind of always been in my head. It's just a choice of 6, basically. For me, the best relic by far has been Equilibrium. I have been a super Equilibrium stan. I'm not even joking. I know people are gonna like. Listen, I've been defending this take for 5 weeks. Okay, I've had people. It's been a long road for me.
Someone in my chat before we came on to chat was like, call him Mr. Equilibrium because he's been defending this relic for like the last 5 weeks.
Listen, at this point, I'm over it. Like, because I have everybody coming in telling me how bad it is and stuff, and I'm like, but no, I think in general, like, it's funny because every complaint I've seen about Equilibrium is exactly what I said when I rated the relics. So I totally get it. But after having like played it, the best way I can describe it, somebody left a comment when I talked about it. It's kind of like just having sandpaper on all of your skills. Like it just smooths them all out, makes all the progression feel nice and clean. And like, to me, I found that playing with Equilibrium had more of an impact in like what I actually did and what skilling methods I did than like any other relic I've played with. The biggest thing I could say is that like, it just makes everything feel pretty decent. And like, there was no real skill that I ever was like, man, this skill really sucks to train, or this feels really awful to train. And I thought, listen, at first I thought I was coping, but I did it on a second account too. That account is also near max, and man, Equilibrium just, it feels really, really cool. For me though, the thing is though, I think you pick Equilibrium because you want to play around with Equilibrium and you want to see what weird stuff actually ends up working. So like mastering mixology, you know, when you're like dunking those herbs in there, you're getting like 250 drops or something. Like you just get some crazy stuff like that just starts happening where you're like, holy moly, this is like kind of nuts how much extra, because there's a lot of like little like pity tertiary experience that you get now. Like, man, I remember I was doing Winter Todd and I went like 30 to 60 herb lore just making the potions in between games, because that starts like massively speeding up. And you know, a lot of people always say like, oh, Equilibrium's only for like 50 mil dragon maxers, but I feel like the coolest part was the early game where like you hit Equilibrium and now like all your skills are just pretty damn good, because like raking a farming patch is suddenly like pretty good experience for level 1 farming, you know, and things like that. Like, man, I remember I was rune crafting, I was dropping all my essence and one by one picking up and rune crafted, because early game it takes forever to get, but it was because it was actually worth it at the beginning. When you have like no essence, you have like, it takes forever to even get there. And like, I think I would probably say that for the vast majority of people, they probably won't like it. But I think like for me, who kind of enjoys going out of my way and like testing some weird stuff and doing weird skilling methods, like I found like Equilibrium was so fun to play with, and like it was like a really nice all around like cool option. And I had a lot of I don't know, I just had a lot of fun doing it, and it's like definitely something I'd pick. I think the earlier it is now, the better, actually, because you start getting that benefit when your skills are still pretty low. And it's actually in the end game when I think it doesn't really matter as much, because like, you know, unless you're grinding for 50 mils, you don't really need the extra experience.
Yeah. I mean, still haven't picked it. I mean, maybe there's time for one more playthrough where I pick all the relics I haven't picked yet. But yeah, I feel like for me, Equilibrium was always the relic that someone in the chat or someone somewhere said like, oh yeah, have you thought about picking Equilibrium? And I've always said no, because until this randomized account, I've always felt like my choices always account for the skills that I think are going to be a pain to get around, you know? But I feel like, I guess if you want to ignore all of that and focus on the relics that you think will just be the most fun, then Equilibrium, like you say, will smooth out the edges a little bit. But like on my first playthrough, I picked all my relics, just making sure that whatever weakness the account would have was kind of covered through one way or another without picking Equilibrium. So I get it. But I guess I just never really thought about picking it. But cool. So Equilibrium was your favorite.
Yeah, I will say, last thing I'll say about it though is like, if you pick it, you should try to seek out ways to use it, because if you just pick it and you do all the regular training methods, it's gonna feel so awful. And it's like picking Golden God and then you never actually buy stuff to Alk, and it's like you got to use it to make it feel good, I think.
No, I totally get that. Like, don't go picking Equilibrium if you're just gonna do a whole inventory at once. And that's actually a question I had, was how does it, with Production Master, does it still count every single thing in the inventory? So it gives you one fat XP drop?
Well, you would get like 20, let's say you have 27 things and you produce them all, you get 27 times your equilibrium. So it does count, and you get a lot, especially like, man, I remember like I did Equilibrium Production Master and I was getting like 5,000 for a full inventory of like bronze bars or something that you can buy. So it was pretty cool. There's some pretty cool stuff you can do with it.
Yeah, that's what I mean. You just got to seek out the methods with that. But that's cool. Right, Worst Relic. Are we gonna agree?
What do you think is the worst relic? Wait, I had one and I totally forgot. Hold on. Wait, you say yours. Let me get a second.
I'll say mine.
I totally wrote it down. Yeah, go for it.
I personally, and there's nothing that will make me change my mind on this, the worst Leagues 5 relic is Corner Cutter. There's almost no debate for me, because I looked at each one of the tiers and I thought, like, what is the relic I would like the least out of all of these? And I feel like at every tier, other than Reloaded and going back to pick a teleport relic, which I think is just the worst thing you can possibly do, is pick 2 teleport relics intentionally, is pick Corner Cutter. Because number one, it's not even the best relic for agility. Somehow Dodgy Deals is. Number two, the money you get from Corner Cutter somehow feels worse than just going out and doing like trivial low-level Slayer PVM and the drops you get from there, because the rate at which you get Marks of Grace aren't even that good, and getting 40k per lap, then increase to 80k per lap, actually isn't much. Like, if you have to do 10 laps for 1 Mark of Grace, you've just spent loads of time that you could have gone out of your way and made easily like 200, 300k doing something else. So the money element of Corner Cutter is just it's not even really a main feature of it. It's a nice to have, but it's not even a main feature. So if we're talking about the main features of Corner Cutter, what is it? It's an agility relic. And the agility XP isn't that good. I remember picking it and someone in my chat said, hey man, at least you'll never have to do another agility lap again. And besides the 120 odd monkey laps I did, plus some Sears laps for money and some Canifis laps and just like the odd laps here and there, and Sepulchre, of course, I did a lot of Sepulchre. I still only ended up somewhere around like late 80s agility. And that doesn't feel great for a relic that is centered around agility. Like I should be getting XP everywhere I go. I made a conscious effort to keep the Greaves on. I feel like in Leagues, Trickster last year was so good because of all of the multiple elements. They stripped it right back to like it's like core, like just a couple core features, and it's not enough as a relic as a standalone. I just really couldn't see how either of the other two choices wouldn't be a must pick over that.
Oh yeah, I totally disagree. That's crazy.
Okay, go for it.
No, I totally disagree. I mean, to be fair, I agree with a lot of like what you're saying, mainly about, I feel the biggest problem that I have with Corner Cutter is that it just doesn't feel like you get enough agility, and that is a little bit weird to me. You know what I mean? Like it's weird because I'm like, I've been playing this account for like a lot for a week and I'm only like 90, but I've been playing a lot of hours where it's like, I think I should be like 99. Like I'm curious how long you have to play the game to get 50 mil. You know, and I understand that that's functionally no time you're actually spent training agility, but like, I just want to see how long it takes, because it feels like you have to play like, I'm not joking, like you probably play like 300 hours, something like crazy amount.
You spend so much time in Leagues teleporting around. Minigame teleports, no cooldown. You get a teleport relic. Everyone gets a teleport relic. Like, I feel like you just don't actually get as many XP drops from Sage's Greaves as you think you do. Anyway, carry on.
I don't know. So I agree with that for sure. The thing is though, is that I don't really think it's that bad, and I honestly don't think it's as like ridiculous. Like I definitely would probably say it's the weakest of the three for sure. But first off, it does give you early game money. I would say significantly better than the other two. Dodgy Deals is pretty close. It's pretty close, but like it does give you early game money, especially if you're not going Golden God in tier 4. I mean, you need some way to like exist early game and buy your initial like cash stack and whatnot. So like, I think that's pretty powerful. I think, you know, if you have any region that has laps associated with it, then it would be good. Although I don't know if that's working for more than just Kandarin, but even things like getting early like Pyro Hook and stuff like that is pretty huge and whatnot.
I will say that was pretty quick. That was pretty quick. That was nice.
Right. Yeah. And like, there's like a couple of like big benefits that you can get there. The thing that I keep seeing is people are like, okay, well, like dodgy deals is so good because you get your agility up really well. And I'm like, I mean, yeah, but like also thieving is really easy too with Corner Cutter. Like right now, if you go to the Wildy, the chests there are like over 5 mil an hour, for example. Early game thieving, different story. It sucks. Yeah. It's awful. It's dreadful. I'm probably going dodgy deals every time because early thieving is like, it makes me want to rip out my hair. But like late game, Wildy chests are still like 5 mil an hour. I actually spent like half an hour trying to figure out how to set up the guards in Tyrannwyn. I was able to go back and forth between the gem stalls and the silver stall. And I was getting like, I think I was getting over 4 mil an hour, and that was at 12 times. So at 16 times, it'd be like 5.5 mil an hour. And in my head, I'm thinking, I'm like, okay, like theming is great and all, but if I'm getting almost 6 mil an hour doing this anyways, I'm like, do I really need a relic that makes it that much better? To me, I think the biggest advantage is if you have something like obviously if you have things like Vires or the elves, yeah, or if you have like, you know, if you're trying to get clues, like all those easy clues, that's pretty cool and stuff. But I don't know. I just feel like thieving's already pretty easy, and just straight up getting 0-time agility is pretty nice. Like I just never had to think about my agility level playing it. So I didn't really think it was like that much of an issue, to be honest. Like, yeah, I would say the only weak part about it is really just the agility feels weird. That's like it feels like you just like I wish I could. Even if it like doubled your experience while doing laps, I feel like at least
even the laps, right? I'm gonna bring up the task list right now, and I guarantee you, there's barely any lap tasks this year, or at least the lap tasks cap out really quickly. Like there was no do 100 laps or do 50 laps of this course. It was just like the global lap tasks, wasn't it? And fair enough, it was good for that. But I'm looking here, there's only 16 lap tasks in all of the league. Obviously, if you break that down by your regions, you may have only had like maybe 6 lap tasks. So I feel like Corner Cutter, in terms of the value it gives, caps out very quickly. I feel like just looking at this task list, the most I can see is about 50 laps. So fair enough. It makes 50 laps of like the Prif course and the Relica course. I think they're the only two that you have to do 50 of.
Oh, I heard it doesn't work at the Prif course, but I don't know if that got fixed or not.
Oh, god damn it. What, you're still defending this relic?
No, listen, okay? That's not the relic's fault, okay? That's
you're still defending it? Like, oh, it doesn't work there, by the way. Oh, but it's still a great relic.
Oh, no, I think the reason that I have is like, eventually you do get 99 agility for free, you know? Like, it'll take you a while, but you do get 99 agility. Yeah, whereas, like, eventually. If you pick dodgy deals, you have to train agility and you have to train thieving, you know? So like,
I suppose, yeah.
I think ultimately it's a 0-time skill, right? I think if you treat it like that, it is ultimately, but it is kind of weird that I think I would say the average player doesn't even hit 99 before they're done with their account. And that feels really awkward for sure. But yeah, I don't think it's like, to me, just straight up not having to do a skill is pretty massive. So I value that pretty highly.
That's fair. That's your opinion.
Especially if you don't have any good agility options. Like, I mean, like I don't know, but I feel like
everyone had a good. Like Brimhaven is still good.
Brimhaven is really good. Yeah, like I think Brimhaven is really good. I know a lot of people are doing underwater with like dodgy deals and stuff. I don't know, because maybe I'm just tripping, but like every time somebody talks about that, it feels like they're reporting higher and higher numbers, and I'm like, I don't know where you guys are.
100%. I agree that people have been absolutely overshooting that, because the amount of times where people have like come into chat and said like, oh, why are you doing this for agility? Just go do underwater thingy. And I asked them, I just straight up say like, how much agility XP are you getting per hour there? And, you know, I've heard that number get as high as like millions per hour.
And I've heard like 3 mil an hour. I'm like,
yeah. Right, and I'm like, okay, well, that's insane. You know, to fuck picking Corner Cutter, I'll just go do dodgy deals, and that's the agility relic now. So I'm not like entirely set on it, because if I'm honest, I've only ever done like maybe just shy of an hour of that activity, because for me, and I said this before the league as well about Fossil Island, the underwater stuff. I just don't enjoy that content, and I can't smash it out in a big session. So it's never going to be something that I think is a great alternative to, as we have said with Corner Cutter, 0 timing agility. I will just say, on record, that's a nice thing about Corner Cutter, but it is very slow. It is very slow, and I think if you ask me any day of the week which relic I would, like if I had to pick one to get removed just altogether, it would probably be Corner Cutter.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I can maybe...
And so's Dodgy Deals.
Maybe I could talk about my worst then.
Go for it,
because I feel like for me, the one that I thought was probably the worst was Pocket Kingdom.
Oh, really?
I don't know, man. I felt like maybe it's because I was really sold on it at first, so I feel a little bit like disappointed. But I've just looked at like what it actually gives, and don't get me wrong, it's not like I don't think it's an awful pick, but I feel like the biggest problem is that the tier of resource caps out. Like you're not getting the absolute best resource and stuff. So like I just looked at it and I'm like, why do I ever really need an infinite supply of like coal? Like I feel like it's easy enough to get coal at this point. It's easy enough to get like maybe if it was earlier it would be fine, but I just looked at all the resources and I'm like, the only thing I think it's really good at is it will give you like a lot of different seeds and will give you like a lot of herbs. I've also seen some weird things, like apparently if you don't check it every hour, you can only get a limit of like 2 Ranar seeds, and that's kind of weird.
Oh, right.
Yeah, that's like just strange. And ultimately, to me, I feel like it's only picked if you just have no good seeds in your region. Because like to me, I think Overgrown, essentially it quadruples the effectiveness of every seed because you have a chance to save them.
Of course, yeah.
So it's like if you have any amount of good seeds, Overgrown just feels like it's just better anyways. And it has that same thing I talked about Corner Cutter, where it's just training a skill for free. And that's like, to me, I value that pretty heavily.
Oh, 100%, man. As soon as I got Overgrown on my main account on Scritic, I spent about maybe like 10, 15 minutes AFKing a master farmer just to kind of like stock up on like seeds in the Leprechaun Seed Vault. And I swear I did not touch the farming skill again for the next like 4 days. And I just hit 99 farming, just like passively while doing like Chambers of Xeric. Like every now and again, you just see like a 250k farming XP drop just pop up in the corner. And I'd be like, oh, damn, those trees are really popping, you know?
Yeah, like, I think there's a clip out there of me in the middle of Zuck. I'm like tense as heck, and I get a notification, you've achieved level 99 in the farming skill. And I'm like screaming, I'm like, not right now, please. I'm a little busy. And I'm like, honestly, broke the tension for me. It was such a fun moment, but like, that was something.
Yeah, that's great. Overgrown was great, but that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about Pocket Kingdom.
Yeah.
I just picked it for the first time on the randomized account. That's what got assigned at tier 7. So I'm interested to see. Because for me, when I think Pocket Kingdom, I think, right, are you going to struggle for herbs? Seeds, bird nests, no one should really struggle for that, but you know what I mean. Fletching XP, and that's, or maybe even like you don't want to go out and cut your own mahoganies or teaks. I think the mining element and the fishing element are pretty like nondescript because everyone can fish Karams. And coal is, I mean, coal is coal. I feel like it loses its value very, very quickly in the game because not only is it dropped in like heaps from most PVM like bosses, but also you can kind of get around using it if you want to train smithing through other means like with gold or, you know, whatever you end up doing. So yeah, I get that. I feel like some of the resources Pocket Kingdom gives just aren't necessary.
Right. To me, like I see it as kind of like I've been calling it like the contingency plan relic. Like you get to tier 7 and you're like, man, I still don't have access to this thing.
Yeah.
Okay. This is like your last chance to pick something that will save you. But I just, so far, I've never been in a situation where I'm like, damn, I like desperately need logs. I feel like I've always been able to figure something. And that might just be because I do like probably more planning than before, but it's just never, to me, it's just never ended up being like as necessary. And I felt like I end up liking Overgrown and I end up liking Grimoire a lot more. So I think compared to those two, overall though, I mean, I think that relic tier in general is not as like super crazy or super strong. It's more, I think it's more just nice quality of life stuff. And like, I can see the use case for Pocket Kingdom. It just feels like to me, it's just not as interesting, I would say.
Yeah.
Like, and just not as like necessary. Like maybe if it dropped like some really good resource or something, like, man, if it was giving me like, snape grasses and like
gives
wine of
snape grass
Zamorak.
seeds, doesn't it? Didn't someone tell me they give you snape grass seeds?
Yeah, it does give snape grass. I think it does give snape grass seeds and stuff like that. But at that point, it's like,
yeah, then you have to grow them.
Overgrown also gives you snape grass. You know what I mean? And like you've seen any place that gives you snape grass seeds, and then Overgrown will like give you thousands of them too. So in a lot of ways, I just felt like it needed to drop a lot more like raw supplies of higher tiers. Like, what if it dropped like manta rays? Then it could actually be kind of cool. Or if it gave you a bunch of those, I don't know. Just the fact, I just feel like it caps out at like where I should be at, like
also,
level 70.
The other thing that I noticed today, and I might be wrong on this, but am I right in thinking if you don't have Fremi, or maybe even if you do have Fremi, I don't know if this is the thing or this is how it works, isn't the resource allocation in Pocket Kingdom limited to what it would have been with just base Miscellanea anyway?
I think you have Royal Trouble completed. I think.
Do you? If you just have Pocket Kingdom?
I think so. I think it treats it like Royal Trouble's completed, so you get 15.
Never mind then. I just looked at it and I remember distributing the workers and thinking like, I'm sure I'm a bit short here. Like this doesn't seem like much.
Maybe, maybe. I don't know. I haven't used it, so that's, to me, it just always came down to when I get to that tier, I'm like, I don't really need this, but I could see a world where I would need it. But I don't need it.
I mean, I'll have to let you know what I think about Pocket Kingdom another time. I really am trying to make this the league where I've tried every single relic in practice, so I can give like a proper opinion about what I think about all of them. But I feel like I've definitely at that point now where I've tried all of them, bar maybe like 3 or 4. So yeah, I think Pocket Kingdom's probably justified because a lot of people come in my chat and they're like, oh, what are you looking forward to at tier 7? And I think when it comes to farming or farming/herblore relics, Overgrown takes the cake for me every single time. I don't regret picking it on my first account. And it's so strong. Like I remember I just opened my bank, right? Check my herb tab, and I've got like 1,000 Ranars in there. And I don't even remember what it was last time I checked it. But I know that like I'm set for prayer pots for life all of a sudden. Like after one day of using that relic, And I don't know. I just feel like it solved so much more than I was expecting it to solve. The only thing, if I can just say, that I didn't like about Overgrown, someone was telling me that number 1, it doesn't work with Equilibrium, which is a shame. And the second thing is that it just automatically replants your seeds that are contracted. So like, let's say you've got a white berry contract, and you've got loads of white berries in the vault. If you don't take the seeds out, it's just going to replant that. And if you get another contract, then, it's just a pain to have to like juggle around and manually intervene. That was a bit annoying. Otherwise, I thought it was a sick relic.
Yeah, I pretty much agree. For me, I feel like the Equilibrium stuff, it's kind of like same thing of having like 10 million coal. Like at a certain point, it's so much experience that like I don't need. Like if I had 1 million coal, I don't need 10 million coals. So, it's like that's kind of where I'm at. Where I'm like, I just don't really know if I care that much about this. Because I got so much. Yeah, like I got that just done super free. But
nice. Last thing I want to talk to you about today before we call it. Banker's Note versus Total Recall.
Oh yeah. Oh boy.
What did you think? Because I'll be really, really, really quick with my opinion. I tried hard to defend Total Recall because I got it on my randomized account, and I honestly like spent a night off stream, like doing videos or recording, and I spent a night thinking like, okay, what places can I use this relic to its like highest potential that Banker's Note can't compete with? And honestly, dude, I couldn't really think of any other than Barrows and like the odd place that you'd want to teleport back to quickly during a quest. I couldn't think of any. And I'm not putting you on the spot to say like find me an example, but I'm saying like what did you think about the 2 relics? Because for me, Banker's Note is it's too good.
I think if you're on the fence about it, you should probably pick Banker's Note.
Yeah.
In general. That being said, I find myself missing Total Recall a lot more than I find myself missing Banker's Note.
Really?
So for me, like I think listen, it might just be because every time I forget an item, having to go back to the bank makes me want to cry. I'm like, dude, I'm so stupid. I forgot my spade. All right, like that's so annoying for me, and I just get like, I don't know, maybe that just all adds up. For me, like I think the true value for me of Banker's Note is I kind of think it's it can be pretty enjoyable trying to like choose your way into like early PVM content because you can just eat your way through everything. And I think that's like really cool. And in a lot of ways, I think that's probably something that I don't know. I think I might kind of always side with Banker's Note just for that, because I do like trying to get into early PVM content.
Yeah, same.
But at the same time, I also have that experience where I'm like, okay, I did Echo Soul, but I ate 100 sharks. Like, you know what I mean? And I'm like, okay, well, like, in a lot of ways, I felt like Total Recall sort of preserved that for me, where I was still enjoying some of the Echo bosses. And I did feel like, okay, I gotta like, go in with what I have. And like, I'm not gonna lie, I think the most fun I had was doing like Echo Dagonoth Kings for the first time, getting absolutely floored, clicking recall and just sending it right away. And I was like, man, this feels so good. Every time like you just die, you come back right away. And I was never like tilted. I was having so much fun learning the new bosses. I found other like cool use cases for Total Recall. Like in general, a lot of the bosses just take longer to respawn than they do to kill. So recalling to start the instance, coming back. I basically never needed prayer pots or food anyways, because I could kill a boss without even really dying, or like I never really had to even drink a prayer pot or eat a food for most of the bosses. I would kill them, recall to full, keep going, especially once I got Last Stand. I mean, that was like my, like every now and then, okay, you die, play a little bit safer for the next 3 minutes. And if you die again, you just recall back and send it again. So it was like, I don't know, I felt like I really liked recall. I think the biggest problem that I had, and this is probably my mistake, I feel like I started to just fall in love with Production Master a little bit too much down the line. And I got to a point where I was like, oh, Production Master and Banker's Note, like this is going to be so cool. And then I'm like, I'm actually like not ever using Production Master and Banker's Note together, because I'm always I feel like anytime I need to do any production skills, it's done in like 2 minutes. So like, even when I'm running agility laps, for example, I'll bring in like 2,000 gems and they're done in like 5 laps. And then I'm like, okay, well, do I really even care about Banker's Note here right now? Whereas like, I don't know. I have a really cool tech for Total Recall though, if you want to hear it. Hear me out on this. Have you done the Pyro Hook? Do you think it's going to make
me feel... Yeah, I do have the Pyro Hook. Yeah, why?
You do have the Pyro Hook. Okay. I found this out after I got the Pyro Hook. But you can save your Total Recall in the middle of the Brimhaven course, right?
Oh, okay.
Here's the thing.
So it just makes it quicker to get into like another thing?
When you leave the Brimhaven course, you get a 1 minute timer before you can go and click another pillar. However, that minute starts when you teleport out, not when you return, which means what I would do. Here's the thing. Here's what I would do. I would tap the pillar, teleport to a bank, do a line of wood fire making logs. And by then, about 1:20 has passed. So I could recall back. The next pillar's up somewhere. I go tap it. It only takes like 10, 15 seconds or so. I tap it, teleport out, go do another line. I would do it I actually started doing it between my Dagonoth kills. I'll go kill Dagonoths. I'll do like 3 kills each. And then I'll just go tap a pillar. It takes 15 seconds, come back. And like, in a weird way, it's like, it's almost like doing birdhouses, but you got to go check your pillar birdhouse every or basically whenever you feel like it. There's no time. So that was pretty cool. It ended up making the Pyro Hook efficiently. Like if you're actually effectively looking at the time, it's like way faster.
Of course. If you're,
but that was pretty cool.
Interesting.
Like you're only spending 15 seconds.
I thought you were gonna say some game breaking shit. Then like you teleport out, and it thinks that you're done in the agility course, and so you can teleport back in with recall, tag the same pillar, rinse and repeat. That would be crazy.
No.
God damn, that would be crazy. That's interesting though. That's a good use for it.
That was pretty cool. That was probably the most interesting one that I think is like a little bit novel that most people probably haven't thought of. But for me, the biggest thing I think was just dying to a boss, instantly coming back.
That is nice.
Sending again. And like,
you just go back, you pick
no
up
hassle.
Stuff and you go. Yeah, that is nice. Definitely haven't had to use that too much. A couple times maybe. It
depends. It really does depend on your regions too. I feel like, so like for like Gauntlet, who cares? For Colosseum, who cares? You're getting a full heal every time, right? Like that stuff doesn't matter as much. But then like, I feel like farming things like Araxor and Vorkath, all of those end up feeling... Vorkath might not be the best because there is a bit of a longer time to like wake up the dragon and stuff. But like a lot of the bosses just felt really nice because like the second they tap down, you're going you're basically back to start, ready to go again.
But there were a couple like tasks that definitely would feel... I don't have friendly with Total Recall, but there are some tasks that I feel might be a bit trickier to tick off with Recall. I'll give some examples. So there was the Grotesque Guardian CAs. You know how you have to do, is it 25 kills without leaving?
Mm-hmm.
Like that, when you're like quite early in your combat journey anyway, is impossible to do with Recall unless you're like really not taking any damage. That's really, really difficult to do. But with Banker's Note, that was trivial and done almost immediately, even at a very low combat level. Vorkath's one, where you have to avoid specials 5 times in a row, that might be fine if you're like geared up properly and not taking much damage from general attacks. But otherwise, again, you have to tank through 5 kills with Recall. Again, not a big deal later on when you've got proper gear. But a lot of this is stuff that I found quite challenging with Recall because I'm trying to do content really early where Banker's Note would have just carried me through. You know, like I'm trying to do like my first Echo boss in like studded leather body and chaps. Do you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
Like,
no, I agree with that. And
ridiculous.
I think that's definitely like, to me, I think that's like probably the biggest thing where I was like I felt like in a lot of ways I enjoyed like brute forcing the content by like trying to, over and over and over again.
Yeah.
But there was also some content where it was kind of like, man, I just feel like I'm like locked out and I could only get through this by like eating and doing a bunch of food and stuff. But like, I would say like vast majority of stuff though, it's not really a huge deal. Like even for raids, for example, like I just haven't really found, I mean, obviously like Banker's Note can just kind of eat through everything, but like, at this point I got to a point where like I have enough brews. I can just bring a couple brews. I'll be okay and stuff. Like even the last phase of Verzik, like I just end up eating through it because I just buy the brews from the chest anyways. So
yeah, that's fair.
Like, to me, I haven't really felt like Banker's Note is that crazy. Or well, it's definitely good for like the skilling stuff, especially with Production Master. Like that's noticeable. But even like when you're doing gathering, for example, right? Like let's say you gather a full inventory of logs and you just instantly note them. I mean, Total Recall, like you just save your spot, teleport to a bank, come back. It's like, I mean, it's saving a little bit of time here and there, but it's not like I think the biggest thing is like the PVM aspect, and that's why I would say if that's something you're interested in, go for it for sure. And you won't regret it because it does offer something that like Total Recall.
Rune crafting, I definitely had a moment where I was rune crafting with Banker's Note, and I watched all the recallers coming in and out, and I remember like typing like, "Hey boys, you need some essence," or like just winding people up. But here I am now on this randomized account with Recall, trying to make the most of it, and just personally feeling like it comes up short. Don't get me wrong, in a way it's definitely making me earn my way through the progression at a rate that feels more natural. On my 2 accounts that I've had Banker's Note, the melee account, for example, I started that up 5-6 days later. I'm tier 8. I've done everything I want to do on that account. And I honestly think that's because of Banker's Note. Just speeds you through brute forcing content, getting your drops sooner than you would get them. While as on the account that I don't have that on, it feels steadier, like slower in a way. And maybe that's more how it was intended to be played. I don't know. I'd be interested to see if Banker's Note comes back for a 3rd year in a row next year.
Yeah, I would say that the split really was insane. I was not expecting it to be
what it was
nearly as much. I think it was 94-6 or something like that. Yeah,
wow.
Isn't that ridiculous? That's crazy. Like, yeah. But
maybe
70-30
is what I was expecting.
I was expecting that, maybe even like 80, but 94-6. I was like, wow, damn. I think maybe people are just really, really scared of like the Echo bosses. And like, I mean, again, with Banker's Note, like I feel bad because sometimes people ask me like, how do you do Coliseum? And I'm like, okay, if you have Banker's Note and you have Last Stand, like, I don't know how you don't.
You don't
like, I don't
need
know how
to
you
ask,
Yeah, like you should be able to get through this. Like even if you have to sit like and just hide behind a pillar and just spam eat food, like you should be fine getting through most content with this. And I think it's good for a lot of people, but for me, I felt like Total Recall, I just ended up kind of missing it a lot. So
generally speaking, if I could just say what the biggest like W is for this league, it probably would be that for the first time ever, we've got new mechanics, new bosses, new items that have never before been seen in a league. And like, I know we've both had both positive and negative things to say in this like video, I guess. And people tend to hone in on the negative. Overall, I would say that this is overwhelmingly positive, this league's experience for me. And actually, loads of people in my chat have been saying like, hey man, like what things do you want to carry over to the regular game? And I feel like me and you right now, we could start another whole 2-hour conversation talking about this.
Definitely.
Right? Yeah. So maybe we should save it.
Maybe in a week out or something.
Yeah, you know, maybe we should save it for another time of like, what would be good in Leagues 5 in the main game? If I can just mention one thing, I would say some of the Echo bosses are a fantastic example of replacements for outdated mechanics. Cowfight Queen I did today for the first time because I just got Desert on my randomized account. And I just thought like, this is an enjoyable, like a much more enjoyable fight than the regular Cowfight Queen. It rewards you for movement. It rewards you for prayer switching. It doesn't just slap you silly and you have to stand there like, this feels bad, man. Yeah.
I love Hespori. I think Hespori is so cool.
Hespori could replace regular Hespori.
I think it's such a well-designed fight. Like, honestly, it's a little simpler, but man, that fight it's got a lot of cool stuff going for it. And you say
it's a lot more simple, but I think when you do Hespori, like, I don't want to say tick perfect. That sounds sweaty as hell. But you know what I mean? Like when you are ready for the plants to come up and you go and you bop them at the right tick, then you know, like you throw a chin into the corner and then you go to the other end and you do the same thing. And it all just like feels smooth. It's like, oh, that feels good, man. Like that is how it was intended to be done. And that is better than regular Hespori for sure.
Yeah, I think that's definitely, I agree with you. It's like huge W and yeah, shout out to them because I feel like that's probably the easiest thing that they could have massively screwed up on and just made it not that impactful. But I think pretty much everybody I've seen has been more or less positive on that. So yeah, it's really awesome.
It's really hard, isn't it? When you get to this point in the league where everyone has experienced everything, I feel like the positivity starts like up here and everyone's super excited. And then as the league goes on, people start to be more cynical and like a little bit less excited because it's happened. And then the negative stuff starts to come out. I just really hope that if someone is watching this, a JMod or whatever, like, good job, man. Like this was the best league so far, in my opinion. And I can't wait to see what League 6 has to offer.
Yep. And I think that, I guess the last thing I'll kind of say is that I think a lot of the positives and negatives, in my opinion, seem more of it's like almost a magnifying glass on the base game as opposed to necessarily
it's not the
leagues
like
itself,
no,
you know?
No, yeah.
It's almost like it's just some things get exponentially made worse, you know? Like having a lot of downtime at Sire, it feels a lot worse in leagues. Yeah. But that's a problem in the main game too that probably needs to be addressed. And then some of the more positive things end up feeling way better, like doing 8-man TOAs and everybody gets a purple every time. And like, dude, that stuff it just feels so cool. Like, yeah, that stuff is really cool.
Yeah.
So
sweet. Well, anyway, man, it has been great chatting. Thank you everyone for watching. I hope everyone who is watching has really enjoyed Leagues 5. You know, make sure to leave a comment on what your like favorite thing is. I'm sure we'll both really enjoy reading that. And if you do want to see, you know, me and Doubleshine like get together, have another chat about something else, leave us some ideas. So there's plenty that I'm sure we could chat about. But if you've got anything that you want to see, you know, let us know. It doesn't have to end with Leagues 5. That's all I'll say.
Yeah, but we still got another month of Leagues 5 anyway. True. So, you know, still
plenty I want to do.
To see.
Still plenty I want to do. Yeah.
And that's pretty cool. I'm glad we got to kind of set this up because I think it's been on the back burner for a while and I'm glad we got to do it. So
yeah, man, it's always a pleasure talking. Thank you for the time.